This little cabbage is one of the most underrated vegetables of all time. It's cheap, it's easy to work with, and absolutely delicious. So in this video, I want to show you a roasted cabbage recipe. We're going to slice it into wedges. We're going to roast it in the oven. We're going to top it off with a super delicious yogurt sauce and some fresh herbs. You are going to fall in love with cabbage, and it's going to be your new favorite vegetable. For the full ingredient list, check the description box below. But enough talking, let's get cooking. So the first thing we got to do is prep our cabbage. Cabbage usually has a few ratty leaves on the outside that need to get removed. So I can just clip these off with my hands, and we'll see till we start getting to some clean ones. Once I remove those outer leaves that look a little dirty and ratty, we got that nice clean cabbage, and we're making sure that we're keeping our stem intact, because when we cut into it, we're going to want each piece to have a little bit of that stem to hold it all together. So now with a nice sharp knife, I'm going to hold the cabbage upside down because I want to make sure that I split the stem in half. If I do it this way, I might miss the inside of the stem, and then the pieces are going to start to come apart. So I'm going to put this upside down and use my knife to get right through. Usually I like to just first get a nice little slit in there. Then from here, we'll go down, we'll split half the cabbage, and then we'll do the same thing to the other side. So knife tip down, and then that cleaver action, nice and flat. So now from here, once I got a nice flat side on the cabbage, I can put the cabbage down and we can start to cut it into pieces. Based upon the size of this cabbage, I think I can get probably 4 pieces out of it. So I'm gonna do it the easiest way, where I'm just gonna split it in half once. And now I'm actually looking at it, I can probably do 3 pieces. So let's cut 1 slice, and I'm kind of aiming my knife on an angle to make sure that I get a little bit of the stem, because that stem is going to hold our cabbage slices together. And I already got my baking tray aligned with aluminum foil and parchment paper. I'm going to take my slices and just work right to the baking tray to make sure that I'm cutting enough that I don't overcrowd it. And now this one, I'll kind of find the middle here. And if any of the leaves get torn off in the process, those can go right with the ratty leaves over here. And we'll do the same thing to the other side. So we did 3, estimate that first one. And so we only used about half of the cabbage, which is good because cabbage stores really well in the fridge. I like to take this and just wrap it up with some plastic and some aluminum foil. And this can stay in the fridge sometimes for weeks. Sometimes I see a cabbage in the fridge, it's been there for a couple of weeks, and I'm wondering if it's gonna be okay. But then when I unwrap it, it actually looks really good. So one of the best features of this wonderful vegetable is how well it stores in the fridge and for how long. Maybe you have a Tupperware container that can be large enough, but I'm gonna put the other half in the fridge, and I'll probably use it to make this very same recipe. So you can see that I got my baking tray with the cabbage slices on there. I wanna make sure I don't overcrowd the pan, because this cabbage is gonna caramelize really nicely, but if I overcrowd the pan, it can tend to steam. So we wanna make sure that we got just a little bit of room in between each one. So now to season these up, we're gonna take some olive oil and just drizzle it right over the top of each one. I'm just moving real quickly with my olive oil in the pour spout bottle. So I give it a quick drizzle. Once these are drizzled on top, we'll take some of my base seasoning. This is a blend of garlic powder, onion powder, salt, and pepper. And I'll do the same thing, just a light sprinkle on top of each one. And I like doing this because it's just one less thing to dirty. I can just work right off the baking sheet. I don't have to get a bowl, mix stuff, and then clean the bowl. We just go right off of here. And I'll do the same thing with just a sprinkle of some smoked paprika right on top as well. It's gonna add a nice red color and also that wonderful smoky flavor. And now from here, with just my hands, I'm gonna spread the seasoning and the olive oil all over and inside the leaves of the cabbage. I'm trying to make sure that anything that's on the baking tray gets in there, and especially like these top leaves that can kind of fan out a little bit. I'm just gonna run my finger over the top of them just to get any of the seasoning and oil inside there. And I'll also take the other side of the cabbage and just rub it into the baking tray. If anything falls apart, I can always just like put it right back together. And I'll just take my hand and just rub everything in really nicely just to make sure that everything is all well coated. And again, some of these top leaves have some oil and some spices on the inside of them. And again, if like a center core pops out, no big deal. I'm just gonna puzzle piece that thing right back in there. So once these are seasoned with the oil, the base seasoning, and the smoked paprika, we're gonna throw them in a 400-degree oven, and I have the convection setting on. So if you don't have a convection setting on, maybe once you go just a little bit higher, like 415, 425, we're gonna cook them for about 30 to 45 minutes total. We're looking for more of a look than a time, so make sure you're paying attention. About halfway through, we're gonna give them a flip, and we're gonna hit them with the cheese. Let's get them in the oven for that initial cook. So we're gonna go 400 convection setting on for about 15 minutes before we flip them. So while that's in the oven cooking, it'll give us plenty of time to make a sauce. We're gonna make a fresh and really a light sauce that's gonna go with this cabbage. All this stuff's gonna be relatively healthy, so it's not gonna be too heavy. We're gonna start off with a base of some 0% Greek yogurt. I find Greek yogurt is such a good base for a creamy sauce that mixes up. This stuff is high protein, low calorie, and gets exactly what we're looking for, that nice creaminess. And that's just gonna be the base that's gonna carry the rest of the ingredients in this sauce. Not only does it have all those wonderful features, I always have this on hand. This is a snack we eat a lot of. It goes with everything. You can make sauces out of. You know, Greek yogurt, especially the 0%, should be a pantry staple for you. So now to that, we're gonna add a couple of tablespoons of some olive oil. And now for some acidity and a little bit of that wonderful flavor, we're gonna put half of a lemon. We're gonna put a little lemon zest on top after. So we're gonna reserve half the lemon for the juice, and the other half we're gonna use for the zest and the juice at another time. That was a nice juicy lemon. So now we're gonna put in a little Dijon mustard. So not only does Dijon mustard add a good flavor, Dijon mustard is a great emulsifier. It takes sauces and takes everything and like combines it so it like doesn't separate. And I find that this is a great pantry staple, and I find it in a lot of these like cold-based, like creamy sauces that I use. This is something that goes in a lot of them, in addition to vinaigrettes and things like that. And now from here, we're gonna add a little honey for some sweetness. Honey adds a nice flavor too, so it doesn't just add sweetness. And I find that a lot of times I'm using more honey than I am sugar in things. I'm kind of moving away from that. But let's put just a nice tablespoon of this honey in there. And I like to buy the good honey. This is some local honey. It's a little pricey, but it's way more flavorful. And I'm not too sure that the stuff that's inside the little bear is even really honey. Because once you see and taste this stuff, and then you see the stuff inside the bear, you're like, well, if this is honey, then what's that other stuff? I think it's just like sugar syrup that they call honey. Maybe they put a little honey in there and that allows them to call it honey. So now to the sauce, we're gonna add some fresh herbs, and you can use dried, and dried would probably be fine, but fresh is a little bit better. And if you keep fresh herbs in the fridge and you keep them at all times and you actually use them, you'll find that they last a little bit longer than you think, and they just add flavor that the dried stuff just does not. We're gonna take a few sprigs of this parsley, and we're gonna pull the leaves off of the stems. We're gonna sprinkle a little bit on after, so we'll cut up a little bit more than we need. You know, a lot of people I've seen, they chop up the parsley stems with the leaves, and that's just a big no-no in my book. I've never seen parsley stems in a refined dish and it actually like look good and taste good. So we're gonna take the few extra seconds it takes to pull the leaves off, and we're gonna do the same thing with some of this fresh dill. Just love the smell of dill. Dill is actually one of those herbs that if you had to put it inside a sauce like this, the dried stuff actually works really well. I find that dried dill keeps its flavor really well, and once you put it in a sauce, the flavor blooms very, very nicely. But dill is probably one of the most potent herbs. We don't need much of it all, just a little bit, and that's plenty. So first, we'll chop up the parsley, and we'll use our rocker chopper, knife style, to get that going. You know, if you're cooking in 2025 and you haven't cooked a whole lot in 2024, working on your knife skills is probably the #1 thing that you can do to be a better cook in the kitchen. And being able to do a rocker chopper just like this, where I just keep my knife in contact with the cutting board and I just run it along the whatever it is that I'm chopping, it happens to be this parsley, and I just push the pile together as it spreads out. Periodically I'll clean the knife off, and I'll just keep repeating that until I get to my desired consistency. Most of the time when you see stuff just not chopped up, just people they didn't take their time, they just rushed. We'll take about half that pile and we'll throw it inside of our sauce. The other half we're going to reserve to sprinkle on top as a garnish. And now we'll do the same thing with this dill. The dill chops up really easy. I mean, it's just little tiny little fibers. So one time through and you can see how fine that's already chopped. I mean, maybe we just got to do that one more time and this is good to go. And last but not least, we got some garlic that we're gonna shred inside there. Well, really, we're gonna use our microplane. The microplane is such a wonderful tool because it takes this garlic and turns it into a pulverized paste. This is what we're gonna use to zest the lemon as well. And you totally could mince it, but this makes putting the garlic in super fast, super easy. And just to peel this, we're just gonna give this a little bit of a pinch and run it in between our hands and take the skin right off. All right, that timer means it's time to take a look at our cabbage. So let's pull that out of the oven and let's see how we're doing. So let's take a look at this cabbage. This already looks really, really nice. Look how we're starting to get these nice little burnt bits on the outside of the leaves. The smell coming off of here is really awesome. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip each one of these and then we're gonna hit them with a little Parmesan cheese that we're gonna shred right on top. Now we're gonna take our nice flexible and thin fish spatula and we're gonna give each one of these a flip. Let's make a little room. So I wanna go over the flat side and carefully flip it without disassembling it too much. Look at that, right back in. Because it's easier to get underneath this side than it is that side, and it also gives you a nice round surface to roll the cabbage on top of. And if anything comes apart, you just gently put it all back together. But this is why it's essential to keep the stem on, because without the stem, you'll try to flip this and this thing will fall all apart and it'll be really tough to push it all back together. There we go. And sometimes, if you can't turn the spatula, you don't want to work left-handed, just flip the tray around, make it a little easier. Nice. So now we're gonna take some of this Parmigiano Reggiano and shred it right on top. We don't gotta go crazy, we're just trying to add a little bit of flavor. But even just shredding this cheese on this half-cooked cabbage smells so good. And the cheese has plenty of oil in it, so it really caramelizes and melts down really nicely. So now let's take this, we're gonna throw this back in the oven for another 15 minutes or so until we get a nicer, deeper caramelization on the outside and some of these loose leaves start to burn a little bit on the edges without getting too burnt. So now that those are back in the oven, let's continue with our sauce. So we were at garlic. So let's take that garlic clove and we'll just take our microplane, we'll put it right on the top and I'll just shred this right inside. Here I like to keep the root end on the garlic and I'll use that as a handle to shred it in. Any of the pieces that come off, you can just take those and just work those just right into the microplane with your thumb and they'll just pulverize down into nothing. Same thing goes here. And for a lot of you, 1 clove of garlic would be fine, but my blood type is garlic, so we got to go deep on that, and we're going 2. And 2 might not sound like a lot of garlic, but anytime you're using fresh garlic, 2 is a lot, because fresh garlic, the flavor is super pungent. And not that that's a bad thing, but maybe you're a vampire and garlic really isn't your thing, so you may want to tone it down. You could even leave it out, but I definitely don't suggest that. And now any of that collected inside there, we'll just push right inside of our sauce. And now to enhance the flavors, nice pinch of salt or 2. So now with my whisk, I'm gonna give this sauce a mix until it looks nice and incorporated and all uniform. There's still a couple things like the Dijon mustard and the honey, you gotta mix those in and break them up, and then you got everything else in there. And this is a very multi-purpose sauce. So if you have extra sauce after you're done with this recipe, you can take this and put this on anything. You dip chicken in there. This is a very multi-purpose, super utility sauce that comes together in minutes. It's basically all pantry ingredients that if you cook enough, you already got this stuff around. So this is a wonderful sauce to keep in the recipe data bank. We're gonna put this in the fridge and let that chill out while our cabbage is finishing up. So the cabbage has been in there for another 15 minutes, about 30 minutes total. I can already smell that it's done. So let's pull it out. Let's see what it looks like and let's plate one. These look absolutely wonderful. So see how like some of these loose edges have just a really nice caramelization. Nothing here looks overly burnt. You get just that nice singe on the outside. The smell coming off of it is really, really, really nice. But let me show you how I put it all together and plate this. So now with our spatula, let's grab one of these slices. It makes transferring it to the plate really easy. And here I'm just plating one, but you could do this on like a serving platter. I never know whether to put the sauce on the bottom and then put the cabbage on top or put the sauce on top. So here I'm gonna put the sauce on top, but I've done it a little bit of both ways. So here we'll take that super simple sauce that we made before and we'll just drizzle it right on the top here. Now we'll take the other half of that lemon that we had before and we will zest that right on top. And here I'm using the microplane this way. A lot of times when people zest, they'll zest this way, but I find that I have to like dump it on. If I can kind of keep the microplane moving and zest at the same time, I find that I can get like a nice even distribution of the zest on whatever it is that I'm zesting. And you can see that I'm never going too deep on the lemon peel. I always want to make sure that we're not getting to the white. We just want to get that really nice flavorful yellow rind. Now here we'll take one of those sprigs of dill and we'll just take a couple of those and just spread those right on the top. And I'm just trying to find like little tiny little pieces, maybe 2 or 3, not very many. And I'm trying to find the little tiny ones at the end, nothing too crazy. And now back to that parsley. And give this a little sprinkle right on top. And now this super simple, super fresh cabbage dish is ready to be eaten and tasted. I can't wait to try it. This was so easy and so simple and is relatively cheap. Cabbage is one of the cheapest vegetables in the supermarket. I think I got each one of those cabbages for like $1.75 each, and that was like half of it. So the whole tray of cabbage that I made was less than $1, and I don't know what cost less than $1 anymore. And all the rest of the stuff I already had inside the house. So, I mean, that was fairly inexpensive. But look how pretty this plate looks. I mean, this thing looks like it came out of a fine dining restaurant, and all of it was super common ingredients, super accessible, and it wasn't really hard to plate. I mean, I just put the cabbage on there, put the sauce on top, I sprinkled some stuff. I mean, if I can do it, you can do it too. But enough talking about it, let's see how this thing tastes. So, you know, if we cook the cabbage enough, it should be super nice and tender. And the knife cut through this thing like butter. I probably didn't even need the knife. And make sure when I get some of that sauce on this piece. You know, this is my favorite part, the part that has like these little singed edges, because I think like cabbage, Brussels sprouts, any of those cruciferous vegetables that have like leaves on them, when they get singed, man, I don't know what that flavor is, but that is so good. But enough talking about it, let's eat it. Cabbage, where have you been my whole life? Because I have so underappreciated this wonderful vegetable. I mean, I always thought cabbage was just coleslaw, but make this one time and you will never think that ever again. This is absolutely fantastic. If anything changes in 2025 from 2024, it's gonna be my cabbage consumption because this is so good. Oh man. The cheese, the herbs, the sauce pulls everything together so well. You could probably eat this without the sauce, it would be fantastic, but with the sauce, it really elevates all the flavors. And I plated this all on one plate, like in the center of the plate, like it was like an entree. Maybe you're a vegetarian and you want to eat like a wonderful like cabbage steak like this for dinner. By all means, do so because you will not be disappointed. This is absolutely fantastic. Any protein would go well with this. These flavors are just so simple and so good. Oh, I am just blown away by this cabbage. Well, I hope you liked this video and I hope you make this dish and find it just as wonderful as I did. If you like this video, hit like. If it's the first time here on the channel, hit subscribe. And if you're into really nice vegetable dishes made from common vegetables that you probably already got lying around, check out my maple glazed carrot video. That is a wonderful, really easy thing and you really just need some carrots. I'll see you there. Thanks.